Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to our special broadcast here on Hilaal TV at the 15th annual BRICS Summit, coming to you from the Sandton Convention Center. It gives me great pleasure in welcoming the Deputy Director General of GCIS, Mr. Michael Currin. Mr. Currin, thank you so much for joining us.
Faraz, what a pleasure to be here. And it's my first time to be on your channel.
Yeah.
I've always had a great interview with Muslim News Radio.
Yes.
And the TV is great, so I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Hopefully it's not the last. Hopefully there'll be many more
Anytime,
from the GCIS.
As much as I can share, I'm willing to share.
Mr. Currin, let's talk about the importance of the BRICS Summit. I specifically want to talk about communications and how important is it in the enhancement of communications amongst many of the fellow BRICS nations.
Well, Fahaz, and I really want to impress to the viewers of the station. This summit is very important. It puts South Africa in that place in the limelight of the global community where we've always been. And where we've, over the last few years, wanted to reposition ourselves, to be more visible again, and to bring that unique South African blend of leadership to the global context. So I think that's the biggest thing for me about the importance of BRICS. BRICS is an opportunity for us to say to the world that, and it's not an oppositional platform. It's never our president, our Minister of DIRCO, other presidents were saying in their closing remarks at the Business Forum, it's not a forum that's oppositional or opposed to other groupings in the world. In fact, all of our countries in BRICS belong to all those other forums. So I think it's about conveying a way of running the world. And as our president said the other evening, and even last night, it's a way that builds the development of people. It's a way that ensures that economic growth and investment do not leave people behind. So on a lighter note, he said, well, it's nice to hear business leaders talking about that. So the importance lies in projecting a position that in these difficult global times, we have an approach that is developmental, an approach that says, it's got to be education-led, an approach that said it's got to be equity and justice-led. So I think that's very important. And obviously, if you want to talk about communication, there's no way you can expect me talking to 20 people here or a village outside eThekwini or whatever, that we're going to persuade them, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Or someone going to Washington or Berlin or to Canberra in Australia. The role of the media is to help us amplify that story. The media are a very critical partner in trying to explain the position that is a position that says the way the world is going, we need a more inclusive world. The world's a very young world. Do we want to have young people replicating a kind of a culture of a win-lose? Some are rich, some are poor. No. We want the media to help us export that understanding that this is the kind of relationship that BRICS builds. Inclusivity, development orientation. And then obviously the benefits of BRICS are huge. I mean, we're already looking at a situation where we've had major economic outcomes from it. I mean, it took us a while. 2015, the Development Bank was set up. That bank is already, the BRICS Bank is already lending money to people,
And with the bonds that, of course, happened just last week, of course.
Exactly. So I think in terms of your question about why BRICS, what the importance is, the role of the media, and is there any benefit? I was saying earlier to one interview is that agro-processing came out yesterday as one of the big issues, right? Now, when you say, but does this have benefit to ordinary people in South Africa? Of course it does. Because if you're growing citrus, oranges or whatever, somewhere in Mpumalanga or Limpopo, and those form part of a big consignment of oranges going to China or Brazil, that squeeze to make orange juice or whatever, it's going to have a spin-off effect in those communities, jobs for the farmers, agro-processing opportunities, So I think just on a very simple level, I think we are already seeing major benefits from BRICS.
Mr. Currin, I want to bring in, of course, the move from analog to digital.
Yes.
How important is it that South Africa learns from its fellow BRIC partners in a smooth transition? Because a smooth transition is important for that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely. And I think we've made great strides in the last 2 years, 3 years. The former Minister Chaveni and the current Minister, Minister Gungubele, have really fast-tracked a process that's been had hiccups. We all know them. And I mean, of course it is, because we live in an era of two things. Firstly, we live in an era where it's digital now.
Yes.
And everybody's a journalist. Everybody's a journalist.
Yes.
You take your camera,
TikTok,
and you become a
Instagram,
journalist.
yes,
Exactly.
definitely, yeah.
So the management of that in digital form is very critical. And going along with that, secondly, is the issue of the skills development. Now, we were hearing from Prime Minister Modi yesterday about the massive gains they've made in digital skills. Immediately, and I know cooperation started there already.
Yes.
We can definitely learn from BRICS partners. There's been a lot of exchanges in the higher education field, in the science and innovation field, including in this digital migration era. So, I mean, we can't be a continent where we've got a hugest set of journalists, let's say, young Africans, because our continent is young.
Yes, definitely.
And they're not equipped to be active digital players in the global community. I mean, how many young Africans do we know, whether they're in West Africa, Nigeria, as musicians or models or fashion people? How many young South Africans have taken Storm on the Globe?
Yes.
So you can see the importance of that transition is that it allows us to be quicker, it allows us to be faster in telling our own stories in the global community. Because you see, if you've got, I mean, my daughters were telling me there was some American visitor here, she came here and was saying such wonderful things about us. When she got home, she wrote the most terrible things about us.
Yes.
Now, because young people are agile in that space of the digital era, they're going to write back and say, no, but what
exactly.
did you see?
You have the opportunity to respond to it.
You told us last week that you thought this is a great country, you loved this and that. Now you're saying a different thing. So that digital thing, unlike analog, is a much quicker, much faster medium to respond, real time. So those of us who like to write memos and get them approved, our generation, hey, we are slow now. These youngsters, news is within minutes.
One final question, Mr. Currin. Media. How do we learn as South Africans from the fellow BRICS nations in that enhancement of media, more media houses, and allowing it to be free and also hold whoever it is to account that space has to be there, hasn't it?
Look, for us, I think I want to be very categorical as an executive of gcis.
Yes.
We have to be honest here. We have to give credit where credit is due to all viewers. We have a very free media.
Yes.
People write the most wrong, atrocious things about our president, around ministers of cabinet that are completely wrong. And they don't get arrested and dragged into dark rooms and beaten up somewhere. We have access. We have many interactions. I mean, the president's spokesperson on a regular basis, at least monthly, does briefings. So for us, I think the first perspective for me is that in our BRICS collective, I mean, we do have to accept that we have different kinds of media. South African media is very open, very assertive, very accessible. Most government communicators that are very close relationships with yourselves. They know you well. They've worked with you before. Sometimes you were in the same organizations together. So we have a very flattened relationship. At the same time, there are always areas of contention. There are areas of disagreement. But at the end of the day, what we work with for us in government is an electoral mandate.
Yes.
If you win an election based on a mandate, you get given a job to do as a government. And that becomes turned into what we call in South Africa a medium-term strategic framework. Yes. And that thing guides all departments, about their programs. Every year, why SONA is important is because that's when ministers and the president are accounting.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of the media role, the media freedom, we enjoy a lot of access here. We have a lot of freedom here. I think what we can do, because very often, and I mean, GCIS is very small. We're not hugely resourced. We're supposed to be brains that pull different people together and use your money to help. But it's not always the solution, because sometimes media, you need money. So I think we do need to start looking at how do we build some sort of platforms in the public domain, like our countries, like our colleagues in China and in Russia have, you know. I mean, I was looking at the newspaper that the Chinese colleagues have produced here. I mean, it's really good, but they can produce a newspaper overnight.
Yeah.
You know.
And we need to get there.
And we need to get there as well, you know.
Definitely.
And so I think for us, I think there's definitely lessons we can learn. But at the same time, I do hope that in those countries where there's less media access, that there's that sense of saying, well, you know what, the media are our partner and our friend, they're not an enemy. And when they say nasty things about you, your job is to make them understand why they're wrong.
Mr. Currin, I have to end it
Thank
there.
you.
Thank you so much for joining us here
Great
at
pleasure
Hilaal TV, and
to
hopefully
be on Hilaal.
we hope to have you and the rest of GCIS visiting our studios and, of course, being part of many of our content.
Thank you very much, Fahaz, and to all your viewers. I appreciate that.
That's Mr. Mike Currin. He is the Deputy Director General for GCIS. Do stay tuned to Hilaal TV.